Welcome to Season of Change podcast show. It's a platform where you learn about relationship, how to grow a healthy relationship, and how to be successful in your relationship and your marriage. At a platform where you learn about leadership skills and to develop your spiritual life as a Christian, how to raise godly children in our today's society, and how to manage your business as a Christian and your home. Thank you. Connect with us always on our episode that will be bringing.
Yes, there we go. So we are recording.
Okay. Welcome to Season of Change, transforming your life through the power and the word of God. I am your host, Evangelist Jeremiah Joseph from Nigeria, and I have my guest here this afternoon from United States of America. He's a speaker and author, and is also a counselor on parents and family, and is also the CEO of a company, of a consulting or coaching company. So you're welcome to Season of Change. Can you tell our audience your name?
Sure. My name is Mick Smith. I'm sometimes known as the Doctor of Digital because that's what I do online in a podcast. And I also co-host another podcast on parenting called The Aftermath. So I appreciate the opportunity to chat today.
Wow, thank you. Welcome. So how long have you been on this topic?
It's probably been since before my child was born, because I only had one, but I always wanted to have a family and children. I only had, fortunately, one. Would have liked to have more, but it just didn't work out that way. But I was really fortunate. I was a full-time single father for some time, and I enjoyed it. The most challenging thing I ever did, but also the most rewarding thing that I've ever done as well.
Wow, that's great. So can you tell us just how many occasions or topics like this?
I wasn't quite sure of the question. I only heard you said the topics.
What I'm saying is this: can you give where you've talked about this topic?
Oh, how long I talked about? Well, yeah. So I went through a period of time of raising my child, and then I said, this really got me focused on saying I'm going to talk about family and a godly upbringing, which is what I hope that I had prepared for my child.
Wow.
And so she was born in 93, so she's 29 today, and about this time. So since then, I really was trying to talk to other parents and emphasize the importance of the family, and especially having the moral structure and growing up in a church related structure as well too, and how critical that was for children. So in the United States, I think we find that there are a lot of cultural problems that are going on. Parents are not necessarily providing the focus that they should. And I would say, as a father, it's really the fathers that need to take some leadership in this position. So in the United States, we find a lot of kids that are growing up in fatherless homes, which is not doing them any good whatsoever. And they really need that kind of direction. Naturally, you need both. You need a mother and a father. And I think this was God's plan. So man is supposed to leave his mother and father and cling to his wife. And from that unit and from that basis, they are to create a family. And like I said, for myself, I always wanted a family. My parents were just the best parents in the entire universe. And I had hoped to turn that around and give that and provide that for somebody else. And just the way it worked out, my wife passed away at a very young age. And that's why I said I would have had more children, and I would have liked to have more, but it didn't work out that way. My wife passed away when she was 38. And I said this a little bit and talking about in terms of background, because I wrote a novel about this whole situation. Things didn't turn out quite as well as I had, but Burning America in the Best Interest of the Children of the Question Mark is available. You can come to my website and take a look at it. It's also on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target, and Walmart. But I think the point is they're trying to show that fathers really need to step up to the plate. And I don't know if this is true in the rest of the world, but there are a lot of places that have strong marriages and strong unions. But if we're going to provide for the children, you really need the basis that they can grow up in a foundation. And I also mentioned, I also volunteered at Central Juvenile Hall in Los Angeles for a couple of years. And the interesting thing about that experience is that here are kids that didn't have a family structure and a lot of fatherless homes, and they were just crying out for sort of a black and white moral structure. And that's unusual because these are the kids that were probably the worst in terms of gang related, but they really craved for the kind of thing that I think the Bible talks about and speaks about. And we, as fathers and as parents, should be providing for the children. That's really what they need. A lot of parents have this idea that they're going to be their children's friends. It doesn't really work out because you can't be a friend, you have to be a parent. And that's the thing, you have to take a shot at it and say, well, you have to take the chance that the child is not going to respond in kind and they may not like it. But, you know, the Bible talks very clearly about disciplining children. And I think this is what we need to emphasize. And this is what I certainly would see the issues in the United States, that fathers in particular, because I can address that specifically, but then parents really need to provide that sort of leadership and have a tiny church, a small church, and then make sure that they're a part of a larger community, and then whatever denomination or whatever you feel comfortable with as a result.
Wow, thank you. You mentioned that your wife passed on at a young age. We're sorry for that. Sorry to hear that. I pray that God will continue to uphold you. Yeah. You are still a father to many of us. People like me, you're a father to me. I appreciate that. And I pray that God will keep you. But one thing I want to ask you, I want you to dwell more on parenthood. What do you mean by parenthood?
Parenthood, did you say?
Yes, what do you mean by parenthood? I want you to dwell more, to talk more about it.
I see. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of relationships that people have, but if you're going to have a parent, I mean, I think of it this way. Children didn't ask to be born, right? So they find themselves in life and they really are this blank slate. They really are now waiting to be filled. And what I mean by parenthood is that you have to take parenting seriously and see this as the most important thing that you are doing. So you're going to have a job and you're going to be doing a lot of things in life. But for a child, you have to provide direction and focus and answer all of the things that they need to find answers to. And that's what I mean by saying a moral structure. They have to know from you and your guidance and your leadership what is right and what is wrong. They don't know this, and it's not imprinted on their brain. They have to learn. It's like language, and it's like anything else that they're in school. But parenthood is the most important vocation that you're ever going to have. At your death, no one's going to say, you know, that guy was a great employee and that's the most significant thing that they ever did, or that they were a friend, or that what have you. But they're going to ask you, what kind of parent were you? Were you the one that was providing the direction and leadership that children need? Because they need to understand how to approach the world and how to prosper in the world. And this is also what I would say, having a God focus, that you were selected and God has chosen to give you this precious gift. I mean, when my daughter was born, people ask you what the experience is like. You just can't put in words what a birth is like. It's a miracle. And a miracle means a new life. So it should be taught and thought of as very precious, meaning that this is the most important thing that you can do. You can have money, you can have possessions, you can have a house, you can have a great job, but really the most important thing is, what sort of leadership are you providing for a child who needs to know how to navigate the world and all of the things and all of the decisions that they have to make. So parenthood means this is what your primary vocation in life is.
That's great. We find out that these days we begin to find people talking about single parenting. Do you think that is what the meaning of parenthood? That is the meaning of parenthood.
It can be, because you may have no choice. So, like I said, if your partner passes away, you don't have any choice. And
Oh,
that's
no, I'm talking from the perspective of those we have single mothers, separations from marriage. Some people prefer to be give birth to children without father, to live alone with their children. That's they call them here, they use the language baby mama here in Nigeria. So what do you see to that?
yes. I mean, we have unfortunately the same phenomenon in the United States because they seem as though there are people who just say, well, I'll have a child and then not necessarily a partner. But I'd go back to saying, that's not God's plan. God's plan is to have a mother and a father, and preferably in the same home, in the same domicile, in the same house, and together. Because if you don't have that, well, you're going to have to compensate in one way or another. And so if you are a single parent, then I would hope that what you're finding is that you would find some male or female figure, depending on the gender of the child, to supplement that. But this idea that I don't need a partner is really foolish. I mean, it's not God's plan. What God had planned was Adam and Eve in the garden saying, I'm going to find someone for you. I'm going to find a companion. And so mentally, I think as adults, this is what we need to focus on. I'm looking for a partner who I can partner with in life and to raise a child together. And the statistics are just really bleak. It's not to say that it's inevitable, but the statistics are very bleak when it comes down to a single parent, meaning that drug abuse is higher, chemical abuse is higher, child abuse is higher, divorce rate is higher, all the things that we don't want for children, for them to get involved in crime and other things, just goes up astronomically if they're in a single parent household. In my situation, I didn't have any choice. So I used to look at it like, well, this little kid who's looking at me all the time and observing my behavior and my speech and all of my actions, and she was taking it all in. So it meant for me, I had to keep on the straight and narrow. I thought I was the biggest influence in her life, especially until she gets to be 18. And this is what I'm saying. Parenting means whether you're a single parent because of something happened, or your partner passed away, but I wouldn't think people should go into life thinking, well, I don't need a wife or I don't need a husband. No, you really do need a partner. That was God's plan.
Okay, let me just add two questions more, then we bring it to a close because
Okay.
we are spending up to 20 minutes now. And what is Christians? How can you define parenthood in Christian terms?
Yeah, and I think that's what's really important. So if you're not a Christian, I don't know how one survives in life. I really don't. With all of the difficulties in life, I'm just not sure how people survive without a God focus. But in the Christian life, the ideal is to have a mother and a father in one home, in one domicile, one house, because that was God's plan. He said, from Adam's rib, I'm going to take a rib and I'm going to find you a partner, realizing that it's in community that we most live out who we are as a human being. And mothers and fathers approach things differently. If a child goes to a playground, the mother is the one who's usually saying something like, well, be careful, don't fall. And meanwhile, the father is saying something like, just go for it, have a good time and enjoy yourself. Now, neither one is right or wrong, but I think what God was trying to get across to us is that a child needs both a mother and a father. And in a Christian point of view, this is what you need to do in terms of disciplining a child, telling them what they can and cannot do. And that's why I said you can't be a child's friend. You need to really be a parent. That's God's plan. And whatever denomination you feel comfortable in, I think all of them should emphasize that.
Wow, that's great. So in 2 minutes, I just want to give us how can we achieve parenthood as a Christian?
Well, I think one thing you should do is stay close to your church. And that is if you have a priest or a minister or also people within that community. Most churches find that they break it down into smaller groups. So if there are a parenting group, or if there's some way you can socialize, because I think parents need support. So in a Christian point of view, again, I think this was God's plan. You got to get into a community. So there are people who say, well, I can be spiritual, but without God, or I can be spiritual, I don't need to go to church. Well, not really, because I'm thinking of my own upbringing. I was very fortunate. My parents always went to church. There was just no question about it. So my sister and I saw that as that's the model. And then we also had close friends and associates who were in the church to help us out and to give us guidance. That's what I think the plan ought to be. So it's a Christian focus, because that's God's plan for us to be a part of a community and part of other people.
So thank you very much. We really appreciate you spending your time to come to this platform, Season of Change. We would like to have you more on this platform. I believe you grant our request for coming on this.
Absolutely. Sure. Anything I can do to help, because it's just phenomenal to hear and to be connected with people.
I will send you a mail. I will want you to write articles on parenthood and send to me, because we're going to publishing it on our magazine, the Rising Sun magazine. Okay. That will be coming up on January for the first quarter of the year 2023. So I would like your articles to be there on the front page of the magazine.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. Glad to help.
So thank you very much. It's nice having you on this platform. This is Season of Change, transforming your life through the power in the Word of God. I remain your host, Evangelist Joseph Jeremiah. We appreciate you, our guest. We believe all our audience, those people that will listen to this podcast after now, we really say thank you, because your message is an eye-opener and is a great deep insight on parenthood and family matters. Thank you so much. Appreciate you for coming to this platform. God bless you.
God bless. Deus Vult.
Thank you so much. So bring the recording to a close.